Welcome to this week's edition of Municipal Monday. These replace the opportunity AML members would have had to come together in Juneau during our annual legislative conference. And are really just one way to communicate out to Alaska cities and boroughs all the important things going on either here in Juneau during the legislative session or things nationally. And this month we are proud to be working with the National Association of Counties to celebrate the National County Government Month. And of course, here in Alaska, when we say county or county equivalent, we're talking about boroughs. It's important to know, I think, for all Alaskans, that Alaska has 19 borough governments, and boroughs are different than cities in the both in scale and scope. In scale, they're more on a regional basis. They cover a wider geographic area than a city would. In scope, they're mandated by state government to provide three essential services. First, education. All boroughs in the state are mandated to contribute to a local contribution to education. Two, all boroughs are required to perform planning and platting for the borough. And that's a huge lift that those borough governments then take on to ensure that land management within the borough is effective and efficient. Finally, they're all required to tax and to access their tax base in ways that support both the planning and platting responsibility and the education responsibility. Boroughs tax differently, so it's important to know maybe that like the Northwest Arctic Borough has as its tax base a focus on mining and a special payment in lieu of taxes agreement with the Red Dog mine there. A number of boroughs, instead of a property tax, have rely on a type of fish tax. So that's something like the Aleutians East borough. Boroughs are different just across the board. Some have property taxes only, some have property and sales taxes, some rely on oil and gas property, some have that fish tax. So it's really a variety of means that they're using to make sure that they can perform those services required by the state. And those services are provided on three different levels. So first, area-wide. An area-wide power is one that's applied throughout the borough. So something like planning, platting, education, those would be area-wide powers. Another level of power would be, or service would be non-area-wide. So those would be areas of the borough outside of a city. And that non-area-wide power is different than power that's provided, or a service that's provided across the borough. Finally, a third level of service is specifically service areas. So these vary by kind of the size and what they're for, but these service areas are focused on a service that's necessary just in one specific location. I'll just maybe note that in terms of borough government, there's beyond those three required responsibilities. Boroughs are responsible often for something like transportation, but not always. Solid waste, but not always. Water and air pollution control, but not always. Emergency management is very common across borough governments, and then some have housing and economic development programs. Each borough is specific to its residents, and that's why some have taken on home rule charters where the residents have driven exactly what they want that borough to look like. And you have both home rule boroughs and then unified home rules. So your unified home rules would be, something like your city and borough of Juneau, Sitka, Wrangell, Anchorage. They've brought in their city and borough responsibilities into one level of government. Your home rule governments, that's your Denali, Amesboro, Lake and Peninsula, North Slope, Northwest Arctic, Petersburg, and then Yakutat as well. And then beyond that, you have both first class, which is in a lot of ways very more similar to a home rule, and that's Skagway. And then your others are second class boroughs. And all it means when we're saying second class is that these are general law boroughs, so they're only allowed to do the things that have been set out by the state. So there's a list of powers or activities that those second class boroughs can perform on behalf of residents, and they're limited to go beyond that. And that was again the intention of those voters in those boroughs, to limit the scale of the government in ways that voters saw fit. So a variety of services, ways to perform those services provided across the borough or not, different tax bases. I think one of the takeaways for me, from looking at our form of borough government is how critical a role they play in Alaska and for Alaskans, and just how different they are in doing that. And each is unique in their own way, with different levels of service and different interests that reflect the composition of residents in that region. I hope this has been helpful for Alaskans to understand just a little bit more about Alaska's county government, or really in this case, our borough government. But we're proud to work with the National Association of Counties to elevate the voices of our borough government, to make sure that we're joined, we've joined our national partners in this effort to look at how county governments across the nation are really emphasizing the fact that counties matter, and in Alaska, boroughs matter. With that, thank you for joining us for this edition of Municipal Monday. It's our really honor to communicate out to our members and to Alaskans just a little bit more about what's going on at the local government level. And we know that we can make sure that local governments are stronger and working together and working with Alaskans to meet Alaskans' needs. Thank you.